This is Brian here, Turp Mechanic. 30 months ago, I planted a tree in my lawn. I did not plant it the way that most people do. It's done really well. I want to give you an update as to how it's doing, and I want to show you the weirdness, the weird way that I put it in the lawn in the first place. Now let's rewind 30 months and see what happened way back in the early part of 2021. Hey guys, this is Brian Mounts. I run turfmechanic.com and this YouTube channel. Normally I'm talking about the grass, and today I'm talking about trees. There it is right there. I put a tree in my grass, and I want to show you exactly what I did. 24 hours ago, this tree was not in the lawn. And as you can see, I now have a nice little tree circle here, and the grass doesn't look like I did anything to it really at all. If you look really close, you can see that I pulled all of the grass up, dug an enormous square into the ground, and that's going to promote root growth out into an X pattern to give this more stability over time. And then backfilled the whole thing, mulched it over, and stuck my grass back. And now the lawn is going to look just like it's supposed to in about a month when everything greens up. All right, before we get to planting instructions and what I'm going to do, let's talk about placement of the tree. All right, so as you can see, for a potted tree, this one's pretty big to begin with. Right now it's March 1st. This is the end of winter. This is a very good time to plant the tree because the ground is pliable, it's not compacted, it's still, it's not frozen, but it's still very cool and moist. It'll be easy for the root system of this tree to spread out through the lawn. Now, when you're planting a tree in a lawn space, especially more of a manicured lawn, you have to be aware of distance away from the house. I've got this about 15 feet away from the house. That's probably minimum for a good big sized tree. I don't want to take this any further away because then we're not going to have the tree in our main yard. I also don't want to take it over there because it's going to shade our garden. And for a yard like this, we have a sprinkler system. Now, ideally, I would be able to get this further away from the sprinkler box, but right now I've got that situated 7 feet away. That's probably about the bare minimum for my comfort level. Honestly, I wish I could get this a little bit further away, but I just don't want to push it much beyond that zone. Now, you also need to know where your sprinkler heads are. So I've got marked a sprinkler head there and over here. This is just over 12 feet apart. So, and I know I have a line running laterally, kind of like this. And then the same thing over here. I've got the line running laterally that way. So basically, I know that in this area right here, there are no pipes in the ground, no sprinkler pipes, and there's nothing within about 6 to 7 feet of it in any direction. Now, if I take this tree anywhere else, if I just move it off of that spot by about a foot, then it starts getting closer to a pipe in any direction. That, for me, is the optimal place to stick it in the lawn. Now you can also see where I have this placed. It's a little bit off center of the house, and of course we don't want to obstruct the view, but we do want to get a little bit of shade over in the direction of the sidewalk and patio. Now during the summer, we're going to have the sun kind of up above us, so by the afternoon, it's really going to be shading kind of this area next to my, next to the irrigation box and kind of the surrounding area right in here. We'll be providing some shade for that room of our house as well. Now, an obvious question is, why wouldn't you move it over here to get full shade into the yard? Well, that's because we garden, and we don't want to block the garden, nor do we really want to obstruct our view of the garden or our chickens from our house. So here you see me measuring out the square that I'm going to put in the ground. I'm putting a square hole in the ground because it encourages the roots to go out to the corners, kind of form an X pattern underground. Gives it a lot of space for the roots to expand without getting root bound and circling around the original pot. This ends up being a 32 by 32 inch square, which gives a lot of room for those roots to expand into. So here I'm using a drywall saw. This is just a handheld drywall saw. It is very easy to cut into the ground with this thing. It looks kind of hard, but mostly because I've just got really thick grass. I couldn't actually get the flat end shovel through the grass. It was so thick. I had to cut a line first.
So I cut the entire square, planning on pulling all of the grass up. But then I wanted to trim a circle so I could put the corners back once the tree was actually in the ground. So I wanted to save everything as clean and I guess perfect looking as possible, so that when I go to put everything back, I could feel comfortable that everybody under the sun would see just a regular tree ring around my new tree, but only the select few know that there's actually a huge square underneath, giving the roots even more room to breathe, and kind of coaxing them in certain directions. The kids loved this weird pattern that I made in the grass. Kind of stopped recording, they played on it for a while. Anyway, I pulled up this circle. I wanted to pull it up delicately also because I didn't know if I was going to be able to use it for anything. So far, I have no clue what I'm going to do with this. I've got 2 half circles. My kids have so many ideas. Anyway, the pot is 16 inches wide, so it's a 16-inch diameter, and this is twice as wide in both directions, plus the extra corners. It's going to have an enormous amount of room to breathe and expand those roots out. Digging it out is always a beast. Don't let any video fool you. This took a long time. All right, there's the hole. It's a full 13 inches deep, roughly 32 inches by 32 inches square. There's actually a lot more rock in there than I thought there was. This is only about half of it. So I pulled the rock out and I'm getting rid of it. But now I'm going to throw some water in there and let it sit overnight and saturate what soil is exposed. And that's going to soften up some of the lower areas of the soil surface, or the, I guess, the subsoil area, kind of in the cracks of those rocks. This is going to settle some of the loose soil down on the bottom and get an enormous amount of water lower than I normally can get it through irrigation alone. So next morning now, I got kids, so I had to kind of just stop. Now it's time to actually put the tree in the hole. I'm going to take the pot off. In an ideal scenario, you're not really going to be handling the tree from up here, but honestly, I probably will. It's not going to damage it that much. Ideally, you wouldn't be. You'd be handling it from the root ball. This pot is 13 inches from the soil line down to the ground. My hole is 13 inches. So I don't care about the grass level, and I don't care about this this fluff here on top. You know, that just comes right off. I want the soil levels to be exactly the same. If I need to, I'll add a little bit of soil to the ground and stick this on top. Now with the pot off, I'm getting all of this, it's like moss. I'm just kind of scraping it off. Most likely some of this moss, I might have to treat it a little bit later in the year just to fully get rid of it. There's obviously some weeds growing in this. So once this thing establishes a little bit and temperatures come up a little bit, I feel like it's established enough. I'll probably have to treat this for weeds, maybe for the moss. But I just want to get the bulk of it off right now. Once the tree's in the ground, we'll put a little bit of mulch over it. So I'd rather mulch on the soil instead of on top of this moss. All right, with the bulk of that off, now I'm going to take the time to score all of the roots all up and down the sides, because they are somewhat they're somewhat circling around. I mean, they're kind of root bound. I want to tease them out so that they'll go out. The whole idea is to get them to spread and fill the entire hole space that I cut yesterday. You do not have to be delicate about this. The whole point is to cut the roots after all. Take you to this side in the sun so you can kind of see what I'm talking about here.
You scuff that up. And now all these roots kind of dangly now. Look at that meaty one right there. What we want though, we want all these little roots to be free to start sending out new shoots, new root shoots out into the ground. So everything will spread laterally through the entire hole that I have here. So as you can see, the grade for here is a little bit above here. Even if you take away the grass level, a little bit low. So I got to pull this out, add a little bit more soil back, because I do not want this to be lower than grade. Lower than grade means that water is going to pool this way and pool right here, which will end up causing root or trunk rot here. And if I backfill this with soil or mulch, I run the risk of getting over this lump right here, which is basically a graft from when the tree was grafted to the rootstock. I don't want to cover that up. Now you also notice that I'm not amending this soil at all. Now there are lots of little tiny rocks in here, and the soil itself is not particularly special. The reason you don't amend the soil is because I don't want the soil in here to be any better than the soil out here. If it's better in there, then the roots have no reason to ever penetrate this wall or the corners to spread out into the yard. I want them to spread. So I keep the soil in here the exact same that it is over here. It's a little looser in here, obviously, but at least it's the same soil that is out in the rest of the yard. Now that's a lot better when it comes to the grade. This will squish down a little bit. The grass surface is actually above the soil surface, so this is going to be about as close as I'm going to get. Now the next thing to bring up is lean. Every tree leans ever so slightly, and we usually get wind from that side of the house blowing this way, and that's why you can see all of our trees kind of lean in that direction. We want to set this tree up so that it is pointed towards the wind ever so slightly. Then the wind will blow it more upright over time. I don't want to put it straight up or leaning this way, because then the wind will blow it and it'll be leaning like that, which is what we don't want. Now as I go backfilling, I'm going to be tamping this down with my foot, because I want to eliminate as many air pockets as possible. If there's air pockets in there, they're going to settle over time. I would rather get as many of them out as possible right now, so that the grade stays as flat as I possibly can keep it. Tamping it down as I go is also going to help keep this tree, the actual root ball, more stable in the ground. Simply because, like, when the wind goes and it tries to wobble, if everything is tamped down well by my foot, then it is less likely to sway and tip, and it's just going to perform better. It's going to establish itself better. All right, I got the bulk of the hole filled in, and now I'm putting my rounded corners back in. So this is it's an art form of leveling, because you got to assume that those things are going to settle down just a little bit over time as the soil that is in here compacts ever so slightly. All right, I'm gonna have to tweak that ever so slightly,
But then once I'm satisfied with the way that these corners are stuck in, these rounded corners, then I'm going to fill in the rest of that and get it all packed down, tamped down, so then I can mulch over the top. And there you go. It's all filled in. Doesn't look like it was a square at all. That grass, you can see the lines from my, let's see, where is it? You can't even see it very easily. There's the line right there. It comes up this way. Like I said before, the square hole on the bottom, down near the root ball, is going to allow the roots to go into that square area and break through in that direction. So we'll end up having like an X pattern for the root system, which will make the tree very stable. And it's actually going to be pushing the roots away and away from the irrigation box. Now certainly there's a chance, but many years down the road we can always move the irrigation box if we need to. The last step is to just put some mulch over the top. You don't fill the mulch, or you don't bring the mulch right up to the base of the tree trunk, but you get it close. Good job there, duder. Might need a little bit more water.